Stacy? There we go. I'm good.
Started. I know Coach has a hard and fast time of getting off this afternoon at noon. So, welcome everybody. Appreciate you being here. Um, we have some new guests, so if you don't mind just throwing out your name and who you're with, that'd be great, just to make sure everybody knows. Um, and we'll go ahead and start with Scott Wyckoff.
Hey, Coach. Scott Wyckoff, WBAL Radio. What does it mean to have Colin back in the lineup? I mean, what a game he had. It seems like that was really something that really got you guys going.
Yeah, I mean, first for him, it's just tremendous to have him back and healthy. He's been hampered with injuries his entire journey here, and we've seen the talent that he is. I'm just happy for him individually to have a chance to make an impact in a game. And for us as a team, it just gives us a little bit more sense of confidence, and I don't want to say relief, but a little bit more calmness at the face-off X when you have a player as good as him and is performing well like he did on Saturday. It certainly changes your mindset in general, and I think that's such a factor in any athletic event, but especially at the lacrosse game, because face-offs are so valuable.
Also, get inside the head of your opponent, knowing that they're up against someone that is as good as he is.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the mindset goes both ways, and I think going into the game last week, Holy Cross certainly looked at the previous games we had and our inability to face off. So that's part of their preparation. And then when they have a player who comes in and is somewhat dominant in that first half, that's a shift in mindset for them to a negative and a positive shift for us. I know it's certainly allowed us as a staff to manage the game a little bit differently, especially in that fourth quarter, with the confidence that he gave us, knowing that if we didn't score late in the fourth and we went into overtime, there was a strong likelihood that we were going to win the face-off and have an opportunity to win it in overtime. So, if it wasn't that, we would probably have managed the game a little bit differently. But because he did such a good job, he gave us the confidence to be selective in our shooting, not give them a chance to win it in the fourth, and then prepare for overtime.
How important is it to have that confidence going into a game like Colgate? And also, this is one of the fiercest rivalries. How the rivalry in a game like this so important to have that confidence because you know that it's going to be fierce.
Yeah, I mean, and especially when you play Colgate, they bring out the best and the worst in you. It's just the way they play, and they're really good at it. They play just this brand of lacrosse that the fans love and coaches hate, because they do so many uncharacteristic things, but they're really, really good at it. And having a more solid ground at the face-off X certainly helps you with that calmness you need against these guys, because I truly believe your ability to stay calm and be poised in the moment against them, moment to moment, is as big a key as anything to success when you're playing a team like Colgate.
Thanks, Coach. Good luck.
Thank you.
I meant to say it. I apologize. Since we have a few extra people, just to make sure people get their questions in, we'll limit it to 3 questions and from each person, and then we'll go back around again. That way everybody gets an opportunity to ask their question. Joe Miller. Oh, Joe, you're muted.
It looks like he's off mute. It just looks like his audio may not be.
We'll skip you, Joe. We'll come back. How's that? All right, Mike Ashley.
Hey, Coach. Good morning. This is Mike Ashley from Press Box. Just wondering what the 2 freshmen have meant to you scoring wise, particularly goers there from in-state.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a pleasant surprise for us. He's been blessed with just a great lacrosse upbringing. He's always had this lacrosse IQ, and we saw a path for him maybe in the future to make an impact, but he really worked hard on his body. He put on some really good weight. I think he's up maybe 20 or 25 pounds since the start of Plebe summer. And he grew a little bit more, got taller. We tried to stretch him out a little bit, but nature just took over there. But he's given us confidence, and he's meant that we have a legitimate threat consistently at the attack position. And the times we've brought him out of the box at midfield, he's been impactful. He's been fairly consistent. Some freshman mistakes, but for the most part, he's been a guy that we can lean on. And I think you need that when you're trying to go through a season. You need a guy that at any point can make a play. It's scary to think that for us, it's a freshman. It's certainly a positive for the future, but the time is now, and we're going to put a lot of trust and weight on his shoulders.
It sounds like his physical growth has meant a lot to what he's been able to achieve this year. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, I mean, our strength coach Tim Murray he's a wizard. He does remarkable things with our young men from a physical development standpoint. He's been here 5 years now, and his program we're truly starting to see the signs consistently of that. Our guys look great, and if kids buy into the program and do what they're told from a nutrition standpoint and from a training standpoint, recovery standpoint, they're going to see the dividends. And for a young man like Will, who didn't have that great background in the weight room consistently, it's hard for kids because they have so much going on in their lives. But for a kid like that to buy into it and get better in that room, really focus on his nutrition, and now see some of those dividends months later, is a big reason why he's as impactful as he is.
What other parts of his game have made him special? I mean, other than just breaking out physically.
It's confidence. It's a mental game. It is. It's a lot of these kids, most of these kids that you see and we coach and all across college lacrosse have ability, and it's probably true in most other sports. But it comes down to confidence and a kid's ability to believe in himself in the moment, deal with failure, and then focus on success. He has that. He's a confident kid in everything he does, sometimes to a fault. But I do believe that confidence, that he knows he has the ability and he's not afraid. He's bold in his decision making. He's got that courage to be vulnerable and make a mistake that I think some kids lack. And that's been a difference maker for him, especially early in his career.
Mm-hmm. If I could just squeeze in one more, then I'll be done. What was recruiting him like? I mean, it seems like maybe you guys had an inside track.
He's a kid that would, come see Dad in the office when he was in ninth grade when I first got here. So I've known him since he was a little bit younger. I can't say he's matured much past that point yet, but he's on his way. So we've seen how much he loves lacrosse, and we were able to develop a relationship with him outside of the recruiting window, just because his dad works in the office right next to me, and so we had that comfort. And then when it came down to recruiting, it was really making sure that this is what he wanted to do and not what he thought he should do, So we had some tough conversations with him and his family to set aside the fact and put aside the fact that Dad has worked here and made such an impact on this institution. That doesn't mean that Will is destined to be here. He had to make sure that this is the path he wanted to choose. This is the life that he wanted. And from a staff perspective, we had to be certain that he was committed to that path. And we were convinced he was. He's had his journey's been an experience, and I've seen tremendous growth in him as a human being in this short term. He's got a long way to go, but I know if he continues to evolve the way he has here in his time at the academy, he's going to leave here as one of the most impactful players and hopefully people that this program has ever seen.
Thanks a lot, Coach. Safe travel.
Thank you.
Bill Wagner.
Morning, Joe.
Hey, Bill.
So going back to Colin, is it sustainable? I mean, we know he's very talented. He won 1 million face-offs at Severna Park High School and was very highly touted recruit. What we saw, I mean, obviously that's got to be a tremendous confidence builder for him with all the injuries and what he's been through. But do you feel like this is something Colin can give you on a consistent basis?
I do, because I see it in practice. Now, we all know that the face-off game is extremely volatile, and each matchup is independent of the previous one. So 1 week's success does not guarantee success the next week, but he is an extremely hardworking student of the game. He's very disciplined in his craft, and he does what he does well, and he does it consistently. So if what he does well works, then that success is going to be sustained. And what he has to learn now is just that game experience of when it doesn't work, what do you go to and how do you manage that? And I think that's the mental part. But, if this were a freshman who was highly touted and didn't have the equity that he's built up in the hard work he's put in to get him back to this point from a health standpoint, I would be more concerned. But because he's had such a long journey to get to here and he's had success and made an impact in a really big game for us, I have more confidence that it's sustainable than I would if it were 2 years ago.
And with regard to Paul Garza, I mean, obviously he stepped up huge. I mean, is that something we can expect to see more scoring out of Paul? We know he has the ability. He's flashed that great shot of his, but it's kind of been, it's not consistent. Same word.
Yeah, for him, I feel bad for him. He's just nursing an injury that is nagging, and there's days he can't walk. He's hobbled by an injury, and he felt great on Saturday. He didn't practice one day the entire week before. Did not play against Lemoyne. Played, against Hopkins on that Saturday night. But there's moments where it just flares up on him, and it makes an impact on who he is as a player. He's a professional. He's an older young man, and he's been around college lacrosse now for 2.5 years. So he knows how to manage it. Our training staff does a great job helping him manage it. If he's healthy and feeling great, I have every bit of confidence that he's going to make a major impact in any game that he's in.
And in terms of the injuries, I mean, obviously it was great to see Colin get back, but Zach Hayashi and, I didn't see, did Flaherty play on, no, Flaherty, any injury updates?
Those guys are slowly coming back. We're seeing them more and more at practice. We got to see how it goes the next 2 days. Hayashi is probably still doubtful. I would say Flaherty is moving away from doubtful. We really got to see what happens this afternoon in practice and Thursday. And there's a few other guys who are working their way kind of off that injury line and moving more towards availability. It's really a day-to-day with those other guys that we're missing.
Joe Miller.
Yeah, let's try this time. Sorry about that, Coach.
It's okay.
I wanted to ask about a couple different guys, but first I wanted to ask about Jacob Darrow. The last couple games, it seems like it's not like he wasn't playing that he was playing bad before, but he's really stepped up as far as calls, turnovers, and you look at the numbers. When you look at where he's come from, over the last couple of years, what has been the key for him to sort of reach that potential?
Just sticking to his business. Last year he was a long stick midi, and he's always done everything we've asked, whether it be play long stick, play on the scout team, or then move to close defense. His daily routine never changes. He always shows up, works hard, asks good questions, studies his opponent, studies his game, and he's been consistent with his ability to handle the ball, make good decisions in the clearing game. Where I think he's really grown is his command of the defense. A lot of those caused turnovers. It's not, I don't want to say ability. He's not, throwing checks and taking the ball away. It's more IQ plays. It's looking for the guy's back of his helmet and trail checking him, or double teaming at the right spot, or getting his stick in a passing lane. And to me, that's just experience and lacrosse IQ. And that's what he does at an elite level. He makes up for his limited athleticism relative to some of our other guys in just a tremendous lacrosse IQ. And that's just a credit to two things: one, experience, but more his hard work and diligence in studying, his opponent and how his game fits into his opponent.
One of the things I was looking at the numbers this year, it's been pretty consistent that you guys have shot the ball pretty well as far as getting shots on goal. Obviously we know about the changes in the offensive system. Is that better decision making? Is it system wide? Is it just players making better decisions? What has come along with those numbers this season?
Yeah, I think certainly it's the system. Kenny and Blake do a really good job with putting our guys in the right places. The system is terrific, and we're only Gosh, it's hard to say this. We're 9 games in, but we're not even 50% into our playbook. I truly believe we're going to see the major impact of Kenny's input a year from now. And there's still guys that he's still coaching, and it's still a coach fed operation down that end where we're not player led yet, and we'll get there little by little. We'll get there, but it's still so new to them. But the schemes are terrific, and more the schemes against the opponent have been terrific. He's been great at dissecting what we can do against other teams and then put our guys in the right positions. And if you drove on the yard any day at noon in the fall, you would see 15 or 20 lacrosse guys out there shooting. Our guys worked their tails off this year from a shooting perspective, and that's a credit to them. They knew we were not a very good shooting team last year and in previous seasons, and they took it upon themselves to work at it. I don't think we shot great the last 2 games, but overall, we've been a much better team in terms of our efficiency in shooting and also getting shots at the goal.
When you look at, obviously, you've had to deal with a lot of injuries, some sickness, and a lot of different things this season. Do you look at it from the bright side that you've had games where maybe Evans stepped up, Conway, and then Paul stepped up? It hasn't been one guy each and every week. Do you look at that as like one of the silver linings in all of this, that you have players now, there's 5 or 6 guys that have kind of taken control of games at different points this season and helps you win games? You look at that from the positive side?
Absolutely. That might be the biggest positive for us, Joe, is that, look, we preach the team around here. Most places do, but especially here, it's all about the team. And I've said this early in the season, one of my favorite stats in one of the early games, there were 8 different goal scorers, and there's going to be times where one of these 8 pop out. And sure enough, we've seen that in different games. Ponzio has 5 one night. Garza has 4 the other day. Goers has a game where he has 4. Flaherty has a game where he has 6 points, and there's other guys that are capable of doing that, right? And I think that's the beauty of a team. It's a credit to what Kenny's doing on that end, but more, it's these guys have bought into, this is who we are. This is how we want to play. And they're okay not being the guy if somebody else is the guy. It'd be nice if 2 or 3 of them popped off on at one time, but we'll wait for that moment. Hopefully it's this Saturday.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Just a side note, we've had 24 different players score a goal for us this year, which ties for the most in program history. The other team that did that was 2000. We'll go around one more time. Scott Wyckoff.
Coach, what is it about this team that makes them possess the ball so well, turning it over so infrequently? And how important is that going to be against a team that plays the way Colgate plays?
Absolutely. I mean, possessions are going to be key for this game. They lead the country in speed of offense and how quickly they play. They want to get games in the 40s, 50s, and 60s in terms of possession, where most games you see are in the 30s per team. So us limiting their time on the offensive end is extremely important. That's been a mantra for us. While we don't want to play slow, we want to manage the moments, manage the game. And we've been forced into that because of the face-off situation. And that's kind of opened up our guys' eyes to how that can be successful. So I think the negative of being injured at the face-off X and really having to value the ball even more has allowed our guys to see how that fits into a broader game plan when you're close to full strength. And if you can get stops on defense, clear the ball, face off at better than 50%, and manage the game on offense with limited turnovers, then that's a really good formula to compete to win. And we're starting to see that. Our guys are buying into it. Again, it goes back to the coaching on that end of the field where he's really preached good decision making, and not taking what we grade as a 3-shot, not taking a 2-shot early in the possession, taking a 1 if it's there and 2 late in the possession, I think has really been critical for our guys. And it's a process. There's been times where we've taken some of those 3 shots early and our guys see the negative of it, but they've learned from that.
And do you think your young guys realize the gauntlet that they're moving through right now in this Patriot League schedule? The leaders of the team have let them know that this is going to be some really tough lacrosse down the stretch?
Yeah, you can say it till you're blue in the face, but then you can go up to Holy Cross and you can get into a 1 goal battle, and sneak out a win again in overtime. I think that experience they need to have, because you look at last Saturday, every Patriot League game was a 1 goal game, and literally the conference championship is going to come down to a play that's disciplined somewhere on the field that nobody notices, and we've got to be really thoughtful and mindful of the details and fundamentals of our game. And that's what we've been preaching. Just be detailed in the disciplined decision making and fundamentals of our sport, because that's going to be the difference between winning and losing against these great teams we're going to see here the next few weeks.
Thanks, Coach. Good luck.
Thank you, Scott.
Mike, Ashley, anything else?
Yeah, Coach. I just not being as familiar with your team as these other guys. I just wondered the move of Will to more midfield. How did that evolve, and when did it happen, and how's it going?
Yeah, I mean he's back in attack. He'll come out of the box. We have some depth at the attack position. We have a senior Henry Tolker who plays the same position as he does, and Henry's not as suited for midfield. So there's times when we want Henry in the game, and we feel like we need a little bit more presence at the midfield. So we bring Will out of the box. Some of that's been injury-related decisions where there's been midfielders who haven't been available. So we can't go as deep into our lineup there. And Will provides just a matchup challenge for defenses, because you have to decide who you're going to put the pole on that first midfield. When you've got a kid like Ponzio who can pop off 5 in a game, or you got a kid like Flaherty or Evan Conway or Paul Garza, and you've got 2 other guys out there with Will who have that ability, it puts some stress on defenses. When Will's on attack, he gives us an option behind the cage with a more of a dodging presence. So, there's times where we like him on the field there, and we'll see a little bit of both as the season progresses.
Thanks.
Bill Wagner.
Well, Coach, I guess what can we expect this weekend with Colgate?
Complete chaos, truly chaos. I mean, it'll be a fun game to watch. We have got to manage all of it. We've got to manage. They're going to 10-man ride us. I can't find one instance in their season where the goalie's not out of the cage when the ball's in the other team's defensive end, and they're trying to clear it. So they're going to come at you when you get a stop on defense. They're going to come at you at the face-off X and try and make it chaotic there. And they want to try and score early in a possession, and they want to get 70 shots in a game, and they can score. So we have got to be really disciplined and really smart in our decision making, and not fall into the trap of playing chaotic all the time. There's going to be moments where we're going to have to. You got to put the gas pedal down and take what they give you, but we have to try and get the game to slow down a little bit so that we can be more poised and take them out of what they do really well. Because if you play their game for 60 minutes, they're the best at it, and they're really good at it, and they have a funny way of kind of luring you into that trap, because the game gets so hectic.
Well, looking around the Patriot League, one thing that stands out, Loyola is winless, and it's almost mind-boggling. This is a team that's perennially been at the top of the Patriot League. It's not too far removed from winning a national championship. Are you shocked at that? And I know that you worked with Charlie Toomey with the national team. Have you called to console him a little bit or encourage him?
Yeah, I talked to Charlie a bunch. He's one of my best friends, and I feel for him because I know how good of a team he has and how close they are. Look, you look at the schedule. I mean, at one point early in the season, maybe a couple of weeks ago, they had the #1 rated schedule in the country. I think it's dipped a little bit with some of the teams that they've played lately, but he's 1 goal away from beating Maryland. He's 1 goal away from beating Hopkins. They lose another 1-goal game to Lafayette. He's closer than what his record is. And, as well as I know Charlie and that staff, 0-7 or 0-8, whatever they are right now, it doesn't matter as the season progresses. They are professionals and as good as anybody at what they do. They're going to have that team primed for a victory here in the next week or so, and they can get this thing rolling. and still be in it in the Patriot League, So I'm disappointed for him and frustrated for him, just like he would be for me, that his record isn't what it is. But I still think they're one of the better teams in the Patriot League because they've earned it. They've earned that moniker over time.
The last thing for me, I had Ed DeChellis on my Anchors Away podcast this week, and when I got him on the podcast yesterday, he said you had just come into his office and said, "What are you doing here?" But he said you all had a nice sit down and talk, and I know when you arrived here, he was probably one of the varsity head coaches that you leaned on for help, and I think you and Ed had a pretty good relationship. Can you kind of talk about Ed?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy for him. It's well deserved. I'm sad to see him go because I do think he's got a chance to win that league next year. And I was happy to bring our team to cheer for them in his last game and give those guys support. From day one here, he's been a friend. And it didn't take time. I had an instant connection with him. He's got that farther league, just comforting feel to him. He complains a little bit, but that's okay. At least I know that the sun is always shining, and I got a brighter outlook than Ed. But I can bust his chops with that. But I think when I think about coaching and impact on young men and truly what this thing should be about, Ed DeChellis is that. He's about care for the whole person. He's about development of young men and making an impact that is sustainable on a young person's life. And he does that through coaching basketball, and I just have a tremendous amount of respect for him and for that old school mentality that he hasn't let any of the BS get in the way of him doing the job that needs to be done the right way, and that to me it's hard. You don't see that a lot in college athletics, especially in basketball. To have a man who is stuck to his values and is going to coach kids hard. He's going to demand a lot out of them, but he's going to love them. He's going to love them, good or bad. I think is just a tremendous testament to who he's been, in this sport and in college athletics for generations. And I'm going to truly miss him. I really am, because it's been great to go downstairs when you're feeling kind of crappy, and you can tell you that Ed's probably going to feel crappier than you, no matter what's going on. So you can walk out of that office feeling good.
Joe Miller.
I'm good, Stace. I'll ask my hard-hitting questions in the pregame show.
Awesome.
Shameless promo.
One last thing I'll leave you all on in terms of Colgate. They score a lot, as Coach mentioned. They're fourth in the country. They're averaging 15.33 goals per game, but they also are giving up a lot. They're 63rd in the country, and they give up 13.44 goals per game too. So that'll be an interesting stat to check out on Saturday. All right. Anything else? One last. All right, Coach. Thanks so much. Appreciate
Thanks
you.
everybody for being on.
Thanks,
Have a great
Thank
everybody.
you, guys.
Thank you.